I'll take a Slurpee.
All right. Finance Committee.
Well, hi there. The Finance Committee was formed last month. We have actually met a couple people. I will talk for a little bit, but we now have a committee of 3 rather than a committee of just 1. And we came up with, since some of the concern, last meeting was, well, okay, what is the Finance Committee going to do? And basically, we came up with a little 1-page description of purpose and responsibilities of the Finance Committee, and just real briefly hitting the highlights: maintain accurate and complete financial records, help present accurate, timely, and meaningful financial information to the board, help the board understand the organization's finances, budgeting and anticipating financial problems, safeguarding the organization's assets, and complying with federal, state, and other reporting requirements, and the details that go along with all those positions, which I think was also one of the handouts. We have the 2 members, and they're both here. Yay! Ted Nelson, who is volunteered to serve as the chair, and Paul LaPena, who is volunteered to serve as another sharp number guy. They're all both. We all are committed to just helping get a better handle on our budgets and expand the understanding of the whole budgeting process. And talking about Manor Casterison, they were here in June. Gave us a master class on budgeting, which is available through the new website, the video of it. Very helpful. Don't know what much more to say other than if Ted and Paul want to introduce themselves or not, that's up to them.
Sure. Ted Nelson, and I met with each of the board members over the course of the last couple of weeks. I just want to say thank you for your time, and thank you as I inquired on how best a finance committee could help serve the township board. I got a lot of really good ideas from each of you, and I think one common one amongst the 5 of you was planning or a plan. And so Jim read to you that the 6 responsibilities that we see of this committee. But in addition to that, the committee has a purpose. And at the top of your page, it says the Finance Committee's purpose is to assist the Board of Inland Township secure Inland Township's financial health and vitality by assisting those involved with its operations. And then more importantly, members, fiduciary members being of the committee, fiduciary duty is to ensure the financial matters of the township are in line and tied directly to the township's strategic plan. So when I think about a common theme, as we chatted a few weeks ago, of plan and planning, I think the purpose of this committee is to assist or do the heavy lifting in terms of budgeting and finances to tie in with planning a strategic plan. So I think that's really one of our big purposes there. And I just will share with you, I believe the committee will be grounded in a couple of areas for you, and that'll be data, analysis, trends, and also with input from community members, clearly from the board, other stakeholders. So I believe that we'll be able to come back to the board with a really in-depth and comprehensive view of financial matters to help you in your decisions as a board. So thank you for your time last week, and thank you for asking me to be on the committee.
Thank you for being on it.
Hi, my name is Paul Lepinen, and I live at 2580 Maple City Highway. And I'm looking forward to joining the committee and helping the board in the direction that we're going to go in and making sure that we're fiscally responsible with our money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate both of you guys.
So I would like to propose that the Finance Committee appoints Ted Nelson chair and Paul Lepinen also a member.
You spell your last name, Paul?
Lepinen.
It sounds like a Finnish name.
I'm sorry.
Sounds like a Finnish name.
Hippolyta.
Hyvää iltaa. We just said hello.
All right, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Board member reports.
On August 21st, I wish Katie were still here because she was at the regional meeting put on by Manor Casterison and Fahey Schultz. It was a regional focus group that somehow Teresa and I got invited to. We heard a lot of similar stuff from the MTA conference, but one of the things that we heard is there is legislation afoot. It is not currently law, but is moving towards a law that all of us that are involved in actual real activities with the township where a paycheck is involved, we need to start keeping track of actual hours because that will affect upcoming laws as far as sick pay. Even those that are working, say the election, need to keep track of specific hours that they worked. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's for every 30 hours that you work, you bank 1 hour of sick pay.
1/4 hour. was it?
1/4 hour?
Yeah, I left my notes at home, but I thought it was not that much. It was 1/4 of an hour.
Oh.
It's not much, but all employees have to keep it, and now somebody has to keep track of every single employee's start time, end time for everything, including
good.
board members, salary, employees, everything.
Yeah, it's not just that, so-and-so put in 2 hours. When did they start? When did they finish? Did they take a break in between? So everybody is very happy about this,
Yeah, I bet.
but, and again, it's
And it's,
mid-February is going to go into effect, if it does go into effect.
yes, that was correct. Yes, so, and it's anybody who collects any kind of hourly, any kind of salary position has to have a documented time. And so I'm assuming that MTA and other people are gonna break down all the exact rules for us, so we're prepared by that time. They were just kind of giving us a heads up.
All right.
On that note, since we're talking about that, Jim, need to get approval for them, for their mileage that they submitted to attend that meeting, before I write a check.
Oh, I didn't submit mileage. I think Jim did.
I did.
Yeah.
So we need approval before I can write a check for that meeting.
I thought all mileage for township duties was approved. We've paid other
That-
people approval for or mileage without approving it.
Yours and mine are part of what we have to do.
We just wrote Dave a check for mileage, and I believe.
Oh, and for parks. But this was for a meeting
No charge meeting. Or whatever, I'll make a motion that we pay Jim
I just want,
mileage.
I just want to cover
Okay.
in case, because
Seems like normal office business.
it does, but all meetings are like that too. But we approve them, but I just wanted to make sure that you don't send it back to me going, was this approved?
She made the motion. I'll second.
That's all. I just want to make sure.
Go ahead and roll call.
Broward,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Zelinski,
Yes,
Worth, yes. Davis.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. And then our
Charge you separately.
assessor is here and he's got a report.
There's a brief report. So every year, the assessor in every township has to do a sales study, establish values for a year. Every county also does their own study. So we've been working with the county to finalize our ratios. Basically what that is they do a study of all the property, every township within the county. They determine essentially what the projected value should be for 2025. They come up with a ratio. So what the assessor has current value is basically, say, they determine the assessor is at 46%. We go through our sales studies, hopefully by the time they're all done, we balance at 50% true cash value to assessed value. That's essentially the goal when we're all said and done. So most of those studies are all done. I do have the 4015, which is essentially just a list of all of the studies that were used for Inland Township. There were quite a few, so should be a fairly accurate study. Those will be finalized. I think Brianne has, I think she intends to post them by the end of the week, so we should be pretty good. Most of the land values have been determined already, and that is through assessor studies. That doesn't have anything to do with the county. I'll start with vacant land, and then we determine basically what the land is worth, and then we adjust for improved parcels and so on. There are sometimes gaps, there's not a lot of large acreage sales within any given township, not very often are 100-acre parcels being sold. So we have to go outside, look at, try to collect those. So again, Benson County does their own studies. They do the entire county. So Brianne has kindly shared her studies, so I can now have a vast list of comparables to fill in some of the gaps. So I should have a plan that is finished up in the next few weeks. We'll be starting more inspections to verify building permits, basically finalizing any 2023 or older permits. Sometimes people think stuff up. So we'll actually be starting those inspections this week, and then we'll do all 2024 inspections up to December 31st, because that's tax day. So whatever the SIGUS value goes on next year as of December 31st. Other than that, just regular processing of deeds, property transfer affidavits, PREs, the normal assessor stuff, daily input, data entry. We currently have had one land division tentatively scheduled. Got an email this morning. We have another one kind of in the works, so we need to review that, and there are no tribunal cases.
All right, moving on to unfinished business, assessor/MAS contract. Jim, you wanted to talk about that?
Since I'm the one that brought it up, sure, I'll jump into it. Thanks for being here, by the way. Back on our May 13th meeting, which is captured on video, YouTube, at about an hour and 12 minutes into part 2 of the township meeting. It was a long night. We had discussions. If you're taking notes, you can go to 1 hour and 12 minutes where the discussions began about the assessor and support contract for MTA. It was clearly laid out that contracts needed to be separated. The assessor contract and MTA, which is the support company for our assessor, presented, no, not MTA, MAS, two MTA publications and an IRS opinion that was written for Sharon Township just a few years ago, showing clearly that the assessor must be a direct employee of the township, not under contract to another company. Michigan Constitution states that, and I quote, "The power of taxation shall never be surrendered, suspended, or contracted away," which current contract specifically contracts it away because our assessor is potential, well, not potential, is a taxing agent of the state. The problem arises in part being in violation with the Constitution and some of the laws of the state, but the real problem comes with the IRS has been, and we learned this in April at the MTA conference, that the IRS is going into townships, finding where there's one contract and basically the assessor is under contract with the company, not a direct employee of the township. And they've been going back 7 years, calculating missed payroll taxes, missed FICA penalties, and that all gets assessed on the township. So, we've been advised, and the reason this was brought up in the May meeting, that we, again, as I said in that meeting, I'm on recording saying it, Not an issue with our assessor, not an issue with Michigan Assessing Services, MAS. Two contracts need to be separated. And if you watch the recording, we proceeded to some fairly lengthy discussions on the contract points, including correcting some dates that were in the contract. And there were positive comments made by Christy Brow about the MTA and Inland's efforts to correct all this. So the discussion wrapped up several minutes later, and MAS wanted Inland to vote on the contract that evening, and very clearly with changes as requested to avoid a gap, or else the MAS was done servicing us May 31st. And as the clerk reads the proposal with changes, quote, as amended, changes were to be implemented prior to the contract being signed. Roll call vote was taken, and to my surprise, the original contract was actually signed that evening without any changes. And I'm a bit concerned that, you know, since then, since May, we've run up, by my count, around just shy of $600 of legal fees. Prior to the May meeting, there was correspondence from our attorney who sent a draft of an old contract that was used by Filer Charter Township, as opposed to a general law township like us back in 2015. And he believes that, and this is a quote, I believe that this contract properly handles the IRS status required of assessors by splitting the compensation between the assessor and Michigan Assessing Services. He goes on further to say it leaves out some things that you would generally want in a contract with an employer or contractor. The issue isn't splitting out the services, the issue is splitting the contracts. You can have the same services described in one contract. What we're told by the MTA, that's in violation. They need to be separated out. In June, we got another letter from our attorney with a new Inland contract, not a worked over, or not a sample from Filer, which more explicitly separates the different duties of the assessor for IRS purposes. But separating the duties is not the issue. He's still missing the point. It's still one contract. It needs to be two, an employee contract and a contract with a service company. The only version that was presented to the board was a 5-page contract that didn't separate either the assessor or MAS, and that's required. And I don't know if it was the impression given or just the impression that I received that the 5-pager was the work of our attorney, when it was, doesn't appear to have been reviewed by our attorney based on the legal bills that we've had. And in our minutes from last month that we just approved, clearly references the assessor contract as quote, contract that was given by the attorney. If it was, we certainly didn't get billed for it. So I guess, you know, to start, my question is, why was the original assessor contract signed on May 13th in direct violation of a board vote?
They asked for the contract to be signed with the changes to it. They didn't say they were writing a separate contract. I did not in any way, shape, or form think that they were going to come back with two contracts.
That wasn't the board motion. The board motion was that we move ahead with the contract with changes that had been discussed as amended. There were no amendments to the contract.
So,
No, and it was discussed that the contract would be changed that night, quickly before they left. That was what was said. And then the other thing that's really, really confusing to me is if we in fact signed a contract which was strongly misled to me and or Jim, I'll let him speak for himself, that there was not a signed contract. We were under the impression by you that there was no signed contract, and we have been continuing to pay all along attorney fees and receive new contracts from you asking for thoughts and our approval of them, why are we wasting our time? Why are we wasting our money if in fact there was a contract already done?
Because Jim asked for a separate contract just for the assessor.
But you signed you already signed a contract that included the assessor. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no legal, no common sense, no nothing to me.
And,
I'm lost.
and we remain in violation of, at minimum, the state constitution, and if the IRS finds out, we're liable.
I have a question. So the contract that you got back from the lawyer had the changes that we had talked about in the meeting?
No,
No, it was a
No,
whole
it
new
didn't.
contract that,
Michigan Assessing was going to change that contract that night, I guess. And they sent something new, I think the next day.
It was,
With the
it was signed
changes?
the same night. It was dated the same day. And I don't see the changes that were made. And it's not just separating out, it is separating out the assessor as an employee of the township, but it also separates out MAS as their own contract. Again, I don't have issues with either, but they need to be separate contracts, and very clearly the video shows that that's what was discussed as amended with all the discussions.
or the other alternative from talking to MTA is, and again, this is absolutely nothing to do with either the assessor, because I work well with Gunner and, or the company. This is just a true attempt to protect the township. And so the question is, does our assessor even need a contract? If he is truly our employee, we can have a contract with Michigan Assessing, and he can be an at-will employee as every other employee we have is. And I don't have a problem going that route to make sure we're protected. I don't know what Gunner's thoughts are on that, and I would be curious to hear them.
That was my understanding years back when this first came about. That was my understanding when all that mess came about, is Gunner was specifically an at-will employee, because we are an at-will estate. So that's what my understanding was. So.
No offense here, but just even this letter right here clearly can confuse the idea to the IRS. I mean, it is signed by Gunner, and right below that, Michigan Assessing Service, Inland Township Assessor. This appears, as some of the other things do to me, and from the research we've done, to be we have our contract with Michigan Assessing, and then Gunner is their employee, not ours, which could get us into trouble.
So if I may,
Yes, you may.
it has always been my understanding that I am in fact an employee, and not remembering verbatim what was said at the meeting. We did send over a revised contract specifically with some minor changes to, in parentheses, add as an employee with the township, just to, at the very least, put that in there. So it was defined within the contract. Everybody knows it was agreed upon. Also with the understanding that a revised contract, or more probably, employee duties, to again kind of separate what is the employee's responsibilities, what is MAS's responsibilities. I did get that. We kind of went through it, you know, because it was a rough draft from another township. We made some changes. It was sent back. So really, I've just been waiting on that also. But since we've started in 2015, Kit Wilson was the assessor of record for the first 2 years. I get a paycheck as an employee. Taxes are taken out. So we meet that requirement. Now, exactly everything that I've looked at, there's no definitions for a wage or anything else. It's just the assessor must be an employee. Is that $100 a month? Is it $1,000? You know, there's nothing in there. So out of all of our townships, our contract essentially for the most part is standard. It's reviewed in 2009, I believe, when this IRS determination was made. It was reviewed by an attorney, I believe the same attorney that was teaching the class at MTA. She was good friends at that time with Kit Wilson. So it's never come up again. This is kind of the first, you know, that has been discussed. But yes, I understand that I am an employee, and if there is a clear separation of duties that the township comes up with, we can certainly revise this contract and move forward. I have no issue with that whatsoever. The issue with when we needed a renewed contract, it was, if we don't renew the contract, work stops. That
Right.
was the problem, you know, which is
Understood.
why we kind of moved, seemingly agreed on moving forward and signing the contract at the end of that meeting to at least, you know, iron this stuff out later. So really just waiting on that definition of duties. And I agree that an at-will employee is not a contract employee. There has to be,
Direct employee.
yeah, for lack of a better term, employee handbook. You know, what are the expectations of the township? You do this as an assessor, you know, the wage, I believe, I don't think that needs to change. Once that's done, I'll sign it. I have no issue whatsoever.
Well, I don't know that do we have written contracts with any of our employees?
We don't, but if we, I mean, quite possibly, and I don't know what the best way to resolve this is. I don't feel comfortable with this, the contract as is. I feel like it should be totally two separate. You should not be mentioned in Michigan assessings. They should not be mentioned in yours, right? Like, it's two separate contracts at the very least. And maybe that's something that Manor can help us with in the process with them of how to clearly define that.
Yes, and it, from, you know, from what you said earlier in the meeting, you're looking at, you know, clarifying duties, statutory and other.
Correct.
For all of the employees anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, we can move forward. As far as correcting it right now to alleviate any worries from, you know, IRS concerns, I don't know what that answer is.
Me neither.
If you want to write up something to say, yes, Gunnar Philip Rowe is in fact an employee as an assessor, you know, something that simple, sign it.
Okay.
That's not an issue. You know,
Right, right, right. And we want you here. I mean,
Right.
that's not clearly the problem.
Again, I don't think those are the issues, but I do think, Jim, if you could put the assessor clarification at the top of the list of things that we want to work with, and as we get all the information from the county is going to share their files with us, is kind of a head start. I think that's the place to start. But I would advise, please do not present a contract as having been written by an attorney when you're the one that's written it and has not been apparently reviewed by the attorney. Because I've been involved in enough contracts in my time, and there's some, as the attorney pointed out, there's some things that are missing from the contract. There are some major things missing from the contract, and it would not take more than a first-year attorney to look at the contract that we have now and say easily breakable in total, which is not my intention. It's not the direction that I want to go, but it's a bad contract on a bunch of levels. So please don't do that again.
And one more statement, if I could. There are other writings which I didn't bring with me. I wasn't prepared for exactly what was going on. Essentially, the assessor's duties can be divided, that an assessor can be paid to sign the roll.
Yes.
And really, that is the definition. You know, there is a very clear definition to sign the roll as the assessor of record. All other duties can be performed by contract employees, Michigan Assessing, someone else, as long as that work is directly supervised by the assessor of record, which
Yep.
it is, because I'm the only one that does the work to begin with.
Mhm.
I just happen to do it in the Office of Michigan Assessing Service. So there are other writings. It's not just what's in the Constitution, of course, it's also after the fact. But, you know, if that alleviates at least some worries, direct definitions, especially coming from the IRS, that there are.
Again, the issue isn't the definition of duties. They can't all reside in the same contract for both parties. Need to be separated.
So, that being said, do you want to continue with your attorney to come up with something? And or would you like us, as Michigan Assessing Service, to write something up also and work together?
I think the place to start is with our compensation committee. Just hired a consultant that I think has lots of background in this, hopefully.
Worked with Jim before, so that's my email, yeah. I don't believe any issues working together, so.
Right. And if you're willing to work as is until we get it ironed out,
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think anybody on the board is not willing to do that.
Okay, good.
Alright. Fire Association.
You want me? I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
Anybody here from the fire association?
No,
Uh,
you
Rose
wanted
and I
it
are.
on unfinished business. You asked for it to be on unfinished business,
Okay.
and I'm the only person that's, from there.
Oh, I got kicked off?
No, oh, yeah, that's right.
'Cause let me know, I'll quit going.
No, because they've been having meetings during planning commission, so I haven't been to one, so I don't know who's on there anymore.
So there has been a lot of confusion over the fire association, and I'll just start with what I know, and we can move on from there. And so from my understanding, we are not currently operating the fire association correctly if we are going to allow them to remain under the board. The board has to oversee all of it. Technically, the money is the board's. We can take their advice or their opinion of what we should spend the money on. From everything that we learned, that it was best to separate the fire association. They get their own nonprofit status and they run as a separate entity. Other areas do it. I believe the county also has a fire association. I was not aware of that. I have not had a chance to talk to them as of yet to find out exactly how they're doing that. I know according to all the rules, we have broken every one of them, the way we're currently operating. So.
The county has a fire association, it's ran by the fire chiefs, it's not ran by the county.
Right.
The county
Okay, well,
has
they
nothing-
told us in our meeting it was,
the
yeah,
county
okay.
has nothing to do with it, it's basically, all the fire departments and Benzie EMS, and they have their own 401(k), they have their own checking account with Huntington and everything.
that's
It has
not what
nothing
they
to
said.
do with Benzie County. The only thing that has to do with Benzie County is the name, because it says Benzie County Fire
Ah.
Association.
That was not what was said at our last fire association meeting.
Yes.
So thank you for that correction.
The reason why it has to be is because we get fireworks, state fireworks money. So you know, all these guys that sell the fireworks out on the stands, they have to pay a lot of money to the state to have that stand and or the sales tax, all that goes. Our county, we get so much. Actually, it's each township, but they give it to the county directly as to the county. So that provides, so we can do fire training. We get like $17,000. We need a place to run that money.
Right.
So that's why there's an
Right.
association. We pay every fire department pays $1,000 into that association to do other things besides fire training. There's a lot of money donated from Schwab Foundation for EMS stuff, but it's not part of the county. It's just said the county because it's us as all.
So with that said, I feel like my honest opinion is that we should sever the ties under the board with the fire association. I think the fire association is a great thing. I think it's very much needed. I think they need to be their own entity and we need to, have them separated.
Manor also
And
said
Manor
they
to-
could assist with that.
Yep,
transition.
and I did talk to them also.
Under our current contract with them. I know, I interrupted. I just wanted to
Both of you did.
clarify.
Well, you paused for a moment, so I.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry,
said
I
that.
breathed in.
You did, you
I took a
breathed, you
breath.
took a breath, so I
know.
took it, I went in.
Okay. They also said that there are ways that we could, because I did ask, because I don't want to leave on hard feelings. I don't want anybody, because of the rumors and the attacks I've personally had in my office regarding this, where I was told to write a check out immediately to the fire association, other things. Anyway, I asked if there was a way for the board to help them get started. And they said that because technically we've been doing it wrong, the state would slap us on the wrist if we help them pay for costs to get restarted on their own and say, don't do that again.
Right.
So that was one option. And the other option was if it costs us $5,000 for them to get up and running, we could, as a board, pay $5,000 for something the fire department wants. So those were options. And so I think that we should make the decision tonight and I'm sorry that nobody from the president or the things of the fire association aren't here because I thought they would be. So they had an opinion on the
No,
decision.
they've been at the other meetings, so I don't know why.
And just to add to the conversation, as we learned, there are ways that a township can raise money and certain limitations on the way we can spend money. It's like with the events committee, we can't raise money through spaghetti dinner, just can't do it. the fire association has their chili cook-off and auction, and even if nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you say it's a donation, the IRS frowns on that and says, no, it's not. You can't raise money that way. More importantly, I think to the fire association is they have and I'll correct me if I describe it incorrectly, a Christmas dinner for the people on the fire department, people on the fire association, spouses and so forth. If they remain under the township's umbrella, that can't happen anymore unless the fire association invites everybody in the township, because, you know, that activity must benefit everyone in the township. And I think they've run through their funds way too quickly if they actually had a Christmas party like that. So I think it's to their benefit. I tried to get a hold of our township insurance carrier, didn't have the correct numbers for them. I tried to contact my own insurance carrier to look into some commercial general liability policies. They aren't that expensive. They understand that, you know, the fire association hasn't formed yet as a nonprofit. And there are a couple ways of doing it. You can be a 501c3, which is a charitable nonprofit, which you could write a check to and take, if you itemize on your taxes, take it off. My experience is that's going to be too long a road to go, because you have to come up with a business plan and a purpose and uniqueness and stuff. And the IRS typically rejects about 87% of 501c3 applications first time around. The easier route is a 501c4, which, quite honestly, I think it's like $25 and you can almost do it online. And, you know, companies that contribute to, you know, any activity can still do it as a advertising expense. You know, so Myers says, you know, here's a $300 gift certificate, you know, go have fun. They're writing it off as a business expense. They're not writing it off as a tax expense. And I think most people will still give to the fire association and take the standard deduction on their taxes anyway. So those are my reasons for saying I think we should help the fire association become its own independent nonprofit association. I think the mechanics of it are far less than $5,000. But I think Manor can help step us through a way of doing it that one of the things that we cannot do, Boy Scouts, whatever great little nonprofit organization, we cannot contribute money to them. I think we can clarify for any audit that we have, we are correcting procedure that got implemented sideways. We're not contributing money to them. We're taking care of the legal fees for the association so that we can pull them out from under our umbrella, give them their own umbrella, and, you know, they can still, you know, use our facilities just like, you know, any other organization. So it's just
Using our tax ID makes it a clear problem.
This was put together before I was the chief.
I know.
What I understood was they were their own 410c3 or whatever numbers. They were just running the money through the township, so they didn't have to pay the audit. It got audited with the township. So when you guys brought that up, I did some checking too, and I was like, no, you can't do this.
They
Right.
were.
At one time they were.
For a while.
It was a committee.
Right.
Right.
It's a committee underneath the township, and you can't do that. I always, until you guys brought it up, I always thought they had that.
They did at one point, but they let it expire.
In it because they do things for there, so I usually stay out of it, completely out of the fire association, so there's no.
Right.
So they'll come to me, what about if we purchase this for you? Sure, sounds good. So that's why I stay out of all this, because so there's that clear separation.
I think they need to go back to a 401c3 the way they were.
And there are companies, including Manor, that will help set up. They told Rose and I, when we talked to them, they told us that it was about $5,000 if they helped us get it set up. But I'm sure there may be cheaper local places to do it. I don't know.
Well,
And I
they said
don't
they
know the
might do it on
legalities
a-
between the differences between what Jim said. So we could look into that too.
They might consider doing it, pro bono.
Yeah, we could probably,
said- Steve said
we've
he
given them a lot of business.
Thought about doing it pro bono, so.
Do we have a motion then?
I make a motion that we work towards severing ties with the fire association.
And they maintain their funds.
Yes,
Yeah.
they maintain their funds. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't include that. We don't want, I mean, we're not trying to steal their money by any means. And, you know, that's been nobody's goal. So I'll rephrase that. I make a motion that we several ties on the books for the fire association with them keeping all of their money. As soon as they give us an account, we can transfer it to. Make sense? Is that right? We have to have a place to transfer it to or write a check to.
Severing ties. So I wrote the first part you said, change what you said. Record severing ties on the books with fire association. And then keeping all the money,
All their current funds,
all their current funds, and we transfer when
transfer, write a check.
we get check when they get an account. Stop. Fire association.
It's money, right? So we have to vote.
Yeah, well, we need a second first.
What? I thought you were second. Are you second?
Oh, no, I just said we needed one, but,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll second. All right,
Now we can talk about.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead and roll
was gonna
call.
say, well,
So is there a different?
Before we vote on it, I mean, we've heard arguments why it should be separated. Does anybody have a reason why it should stay under township umbrella? I mean, that is an option.
What's the difference between the 401 and the 501?
501c3 is a charitable nonprofit, which means when I write a check to you as a 501c3, I can legally deduct it from my taxes as a charitable expense. A 401c3 is a nonprofit. It doesn't pay taxes. You know, we bring in $10,000 of income doing who knows what. We don't have to pay any income tax on it. But here's my check for $10. You take it and you say, thank you very much. If I deduct it on my personal income taxes, I'm breaking the law.
Okay.
But that's kind of the major difference. There also, the 501c3 has far more restrictions on what it can do. It has a singular purpose that is not easily met in the commercial marketplace. You know, and you have, in order to get an application through, you have to have a very detailed business plan with at least 5 years of forecast income and expenses. I mean,
3
just-
board members. Oh, and I also read that it required three
well,
board members. I can't remember what exactly they were called, so.
typically you have a chair and treasurer and a secretary. And that's actually true in 401c3 as well.
So what would be the difference between the 501c3 and the C4?
That I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We can help them figure that out
Yeah.
if need be.
We do need to do something to move forward, but I just don't think, I mean, Anastasia is finding that same problem with getting volunteers, people to help do stuff, and we're in the fire association, we face that same problem, we face the same problem on the parks. So to try to find a chairperson, a treasurer, and a secretary that's gonna stay and do all that work might, so I'm just wondering, we need to look into how we can.
Well, it would be the same
Do
kind
that.
of thing. It's not, I mean, they don't have a tremendous, I mean, they're not writing monthly checks or
Right,
anything.
right.
Or weekly payroll, so it shouldn't be hard to keep somebody there as a treasurer
But-
and or a secretary.
But I would think that we could get things settled certainly before December, because I'm assuming, while you're not directly involved, you do get invited to the Christmas dinner.
Yes.
I think
Not
it's,
anymore.
I think it's important that.
No.
No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Well, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
if
we
it
usually
stays-
don't do it
if
until
stays under
February,
the
but-
township's umbrella, yeah, no,
Right.
there are no more dinners. Which
Right.
is why I think we need to help them and get this done well before December rolls around, because I'm not sure when in December that typically falls.
They
Oh,
usually do it after
we
the
do it in
holidays.
February.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
so we got a little time there.
all right.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes,
So if they, between now and whenever they do get their new business set up, if they need something that they want to purchase and give to the fire department, they need to come to you guys first
Ooh,
and
good
ask
question.
We always,
Before
they've
it's
always
set up?
come to ask.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Between now and
Yes.
before you make the transfer to
Correct.
them, they need to come, I'm asking, do they need
Yeah.
to come? to
Yes.
you
Oh, yeah,
guys?
always.
It's currently considered township money, even though it's the fire association's money.
They've always come to the board for approval.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They always come to them.
So if they want to spend it all and save the transfer, they can do that too, you know.
But yeah, they're gonna
Right.
come to you to ask for
Yeah.
them, okay?
All right. Go ahead and roll call.
Brower,
Yes.
Miller's excused, Zelinski,
Yes.
Worth, yes, Davis.
Yes. Some carries. All right. L 4029. So this is the collection for our different millages. And I've gone through the last 10 years looking at what we've collected and what we've spent. And out of the actual operating millage money that we have collected, we haven't spent any of it. We've had large projects in that time, and it still hasn't put us below using any of that money. So I don't feel there's a need to continue to collect it at this time, especially with our fund balance being close to 350% of what we use to operate for a year.
Did I
Yep.
bring something up with that? I don't think we should go down straight to zero. Mainly because we've got a $250,000 bridge we've got to get repaired eventually. Road Commission's gonna eventually make us repair it so that Jim can get home.
Well, the law states that the road commission can't force us to do anything. They can ask for our assistance,
know.
but they can't force us
They,
to
they
do
may never
anything.
fix it, which means Jim will never get home.
Well, that's Jim's problem.
They just fixed it.
So,
Just from what I was told by the crew that was there, because I had the fun of checking up on them every day, they have repaired it. Next summer, they're going to resurface it with concrete, which is actually gonna knock it out of surface longer than, they dug out both sides of, this is the bridge on Fewings that goes over the Platte River. They dug out both sides and re-sheet metaled the steel siding. There are no plans, as far as I know, from the road commission to actually replace the bridge. They've did one heck of a job of sealing up the rusty spots, and they're gonna re-concrete it next year, so it has a solid surface, which is gonna take several days to cure.
yeah, I know they sent that. It was before you?
No,
Or
No.
they did send that thing about what it would be to replace
To
that
replace
bridge. It was
it.
$250,000.
and they were able to not have
But-
to replace the bridge. but
Okay,
They repaired
I
it.
did not know that because we've never received a bill, so I didn't realize they repaired it, which that's fine, we don't get a bill for it, but hey, good. But I thought we were still
No,
gonna be
no, that has been taken care of.
up for that bridge.
Or in the process, I guess, with the cement going in, but
Because we had to make some of the seasonal roads a lot better, for these guys to get through and for us to get through
Yeah.
if something happened.
It was a major change.
We had a lot of discussions and drive-throughs going,
Okay.
okay, but it's still not where it needs to be. And then it'd be another week. The whole thing could have probably been done like weeks prior, but we kept going back, going, no, this needs to be widened out, because at one time they did the road, but the road's this wide. And it was like, no, we need to be a little bit wider.
It was amazing that cars could get through some of the sections.
So I'll
Let
knock
alone
that off
fire
my
truck.
list of I need to worry about. I don't.
Well, your comment that we haven't spent any of it, money is fungible. There are more things that went into the general fund than just our tax money.
Right.
So to say that we didn't spend any of it is, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. We're at the mercy of the state for a little over $250,000 every year that we get from them, which is one of the reasons we're trying to do things by the book with our assessor and, other aspects. But, you say in your piece that you're not addressing this year's budget, but you actually are. It's not next year's budget, it's this year's budget that is being contemplated to be taken to zero, the millage taken to zero, is our winter taxes that comes out in January, which is our fiscal fourth quarter. So it is in fact a major budget change that you're asking for. And I can't quite follow all the arguments in your paper. The only cuts that were, you say, I quote, the only cuts that were made in the transfer out of the planning commission. I think that's misleading and.
Yeah, that should have said major cuts, but.
Well, there are 45 different changes that you made in your sample budget, and completely leaving out the fire operations, fire equipment, and road millage aspects of it, cutting other areas of income. I think it's misleading, and I disagree with how you got to the fund balance of $7,724 when you're cutting over $78,000 from our budget anticipated property tax. Plus you made a number of other cuts. I have some real concerns taking it to zero on the 4029. That information isn't just shared with, sent to the county so they can send out the bills, but it's also shared with the state. And they're going to notice one of our millages went to zero. And their first reaction is going to be, oh, somebody made a mistake, a typo, they forgot to put the number in. Then they're going to investigate and find that, well, no, that wasn't a mistake. They really meant zero. Why? They're going to investigate further, and they're going to find out that we have this horrendous balloon in our fund balance, and say, you guys got over $1 million just in your operation fund alone, your general fund. You don't need our $250,000 every year. So,
But they can't constitutionally withhold that.
Yeah, they can.
They can.
I went to an MTA, this
There's
whole
some
conversation
limit.
started because I went to an MTA class. Sorry, I attended sometimes, but, and they talked about what the idea about operating millages is. First of all, when you take an operating millage, that's money to operate that thing for that year. So if we take operating money from the township tax, then that's to run this township for 1 year. We don't even, so last year we took in $71,000 in township tax. And so to run this township would be all of the board salaries, which is far greater than that. So we are not taking in too much money in the township tax. We may be taking in too much money in other areas. We may have, stockpiled too much money in other areas. And so we need to figure out that. But yes, it is true. They cannot permanently keep your money. But if the state looks at our amount of money that we have saved, they could say to us, you don't need state revenue sharing because you have too much money. It's not that we can't have too much money. We can have too much money. We just have to have a strategic plan and a purpose for it. We have none of that in place, and we never have, as far as I'm aware of, not since I've been here anyway. So if we had a plan, for instance, there's always been talk of building a new fire department. And so if we said we're stockpiling this money to go towards putting this to, well, and township offices, whatever, if we're talking about building a new building. So if we have it in writing that we are saving money and we have a goal and a purpose for this money, then we aren't in trouble, right? The way we're doing business, we're in trouble. And so, yes, we can lose our state revenue sharing. They don't keep it permanently. They're going to keep it long enough for us to get into compliance. So if they take it.
And it will hurt getting there.
Right. And also, we've hired a new auditing firm. Our books haven't been balanced with the general ledger in months. I just feel it's a really poor time to make a decision as far as doing that. And then also, like I said, we're not overtaxing in that area. So why are we doing it?
Well, and I would say that I'm certainly in favor of lowering taxes.
Same.
That is not the issue. And our general operating millage is the least of it. We have $1 million, let's just round it off, $1 million in surplus general funds. We have surpluses in our fire operation fund, our fire equipment fund, and our road fund. And we should have surpluses in those because that's how we save up to fix roads and buy new fire engines and all that stuff. The $1 million that we have in the general fund doesn't have to be applied just to the operations. We can apply it anywhere we want. So if we really want to take a deep breath and look at how to reduce our taxes, we need to look at reducing all of the millages, not just cutting one to zero, and do it in a way that is balanced so that, as you know, and it's your money we're talking about. You know, do you want to not pay any taxes next year, not pay any taxes the year after that? And I'm just making this up. And maybe not even pay taxes the year after that, but then start getting hit with a big bill again? Or do you want it to come down gradually over a period of, 5, 6, 7 years and then go back up? These are all things that we need to look at. We don't have a strategic plan, as Therese just said. Where are we headed? We don't know. Are we going to build a new fire hall and town hall? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We haven't figured that out as a board. We haven't figured that out as a township. And, I think just blindly cutting something to zero just is, it's not the responsible way to budget. So, and I would also ask that, knowing that we had a couple of people coming on board from the finance committee, and this information was made publicly available, I asked our 2 finance committee people to take a look at it. I don't know if you guys want to weigh in or not.
Thank you, Jim. I would just say, I think that, tonight's discussion on the L 4029 is a perfect example of how a finance committee could have helped with this discussion by, addressing some of the planning and where you want to go. So I compliment the board for adopting the committee, and just would have, it would be nice to have had a voice earlier, but hooray for us for having the committee and going forward. But I would just say, this is a perfect example of how a committee can help the entire board. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not opposed at all. I mean, so it's hard for me to make statements that I have, but that's what I truly believe, putting the township first, because I personally would like my taxes lowered. But I did look at what that township tax is on my tax bill, and it's not even $75 a year. And so the increases in the tax bills, just by property values and other things, I'm not even going to see that, honestly. I didn't even notice that, or I wouldn't even notice that on my tax bill, because those other things are going to, you know what I'm saying? Get what I'm saying? Most people are not even going to notice a tiny bit of difference of that tax, is what I'm saying. So I think the big picture needs to be weighed in far more heavily than doing that for 1 year.
I think it's a great idea to be able to make cuts where you can. But until the finance committee gets going and until the strategic plan is in place and until we have some more ideas about where that money is going to lie, and B, I think it's a good idea for the board just to take a step back for a while on that and let us get going and making some decisions that are responsible. I think it's a great idea. I'd love my taxes lowered. But I don't think it would be a responsible person, even though I'd like my taxes lower. I don't think I'd be responsible enough to the rest of the community to support that at this time.
Oh,
Yeah, and with widening the highway and everything and running it down Reynolds Road, I guess, making it 3-lane, I mean, who knows what's gonna happen? You know, within a year, and we might come up short. You know, I don't know.
There are other budgetary concerns. I mean, 5 years ago, who would have predicted in the last 3 years, 3.5 years, that we'd have 20% increase in inflation? You know, which economist are you gonna listen to? You know, is the one that says that things are gonna get much better regardless of the election come November? The economist that says it's gonna be a recession? Economist says, no, it's gonna be a depression worse than the 30s. We don't know where we're headed. As an economy, we don't know where we're headed with a plan.
all right, well, this is due by the end of the month. So if we want to take more time to look at it, we need to,
I don't think there's any more time we can really take to look at it.
we have this month.
I mean, it's,
So I think we all had time to look at it after we got our packages, and so.
I don't need any more time to look
Me
at it.
neither.
I don't think we should make any changes at this time.
I agree.
So you want to levy the full amount?
And, well,
point
I-
seven
I-
two seven
at
four.
this point, yes, I want to levy the full amount. I want to levy what we've been levying because we have no plan in place. I mean, obviously, I would like to not do that if at all possible, but I'd like to look at everything and I'd like to be responsible in my decision. So personally, yes, I'd like to do nothing.
Actually, we tacitly approved this back in March when we adopted our budget, because the projected income from this was already known.
Mhm. It is,
You're proposing a huge budget change. And if we were really gonna do it correctly, we should have a public hearing about it. I don't think it's worth it, because I think it's an ill-advised change.
All right, so are you making a motion that we do the 0.7274
We accept the L4029 as it is, as
as presented?
The indefinite's gonna change, right?
Yeah, well, this isn't the signed copy. The
this is
the
one-
county treasurer will send down a
No, the equalization.
equalization.
This comes from Brianne.
Will come down. This is just the draft.
So I fill it out.
You can't approve the draft. You got to approve it with amendments.
with amendments, correct? That's
Well,
what we said
no.
last week too.
There are no amendments going to be
Yes,
made.
because I can't say indefinite anymore.
Yes.
Can't say indefinite.
Why?
Because it's not.
With the whole county, with the county election, with them approving to do that.
It has to say 2026 now.
You can't have it say indefinite anymore.
Did the headline get approved?
Yes.
No, we just yeah,
It just got passed.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why she sent me, she sent this, this is her last copy she sent and it said indefinite.
So you might want to, or check with them, but I believe that has to change. That can't say indefinite anymore.
So we could make the motion to approve it. the
With these
millage
amounts.
with the indefinite or the
It's 2026
expiration date.
is the expiration date. That's what we just voted on in the last election. It's 2026 now.
Well,
This is,
It doesn't expire though, right? It's just that that we're allowed to go back and ask for,
Based on the August election, your operating millage will now be renewed with some frequency.
right,
Counties is to be renewed at this point in time in the next 2 years.
okay,
And we can increase that
Okay.
millage now, right?
I'm sorry?
The
No.
townships can increase their millage?
No.
That's not the one that got
Only if you vote
All
it.
you have to vote from is indefinite. That's the only thing that changed. You did not get any relief from Headley itself.
right. So we would be able
From
to,
the county or?
if we
from the
renewed, we
township?
could go back to the 1.21, right?
No, you can't increase.
Oh, can't increase
That was
it.
not what.
Okay,
at
That's for the county
that's
level.
not what was approved.
okay,
When it goes on the ballot in 2026,
says
we
in
can
column-
approve it if we ask for an approval on the ballot. That's the only way to
Okay.
approve it and increase it.
okay.
Under column 9, it says maximum allowable millage levy. And that's what we've been going with, and that's what we budgeted last March.
Well, that's what we're gonna approve, that we go ahead and we sign it with these
Amounts,
If I
figures.
could, let's be very clear about this. Headley still applies.
right,
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
but the word indefinite on here
Yeah.
is what they're saying has to come off.
Right, because it should be looked at again in 2026.
So, yeah, well, so basically it is. I don't know why she didn't put that on there, but this is what she sent to me.
She did send an email. She sent an email out to
Oh.
everybody stating it needed to be changed in
Okay.
2026.
She sent it before the election.
No, she sent it right after the election that
Right
it had
after.
been approved.
I got it, yep. So the date would be 12/31/2026.
I would.
But I will double check
Right.
with her.
Right.
So we'd have to make the motion with the date that is required by law or something. And that way that covers it so that if she says, no, you want this date, then we can.
They just make an observation
Mm-hmm,
that you'd want to check into.
Mhm.
If you reduced it to 0, and next year you had to apply Headley to it, where would you be?
No, we can,
Exactly.
my understanding is you can raise
Yeah,
Shannon,
previous year's
you
assessment.
can't.
with,
You cannot increase it beyond the previous year's assessment. So if you lower it,
You're stuck.
you'd want to get a legal opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
I applaud the effort.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm,
And as I said before, I don't think we attack just one. We look at all the millages. And we look at all the millages in a balanced picture with a real plan in place.
I know now that you put a finance committee together 5 years ago, and the county finally put together a capital plan and budget. And that's how we justify, of course, we can carry a 25% surplus, but, then now our constituents know what we're gonna use the money for.
Exactly.
right,
And it's a 5-year rolling plan.
right.
Yes.
So I move that we accept the L 4029 millage levy as written with the change in the expiration date of the millage authorized.
I'll second. So you have experience helping do a capital plan? Is that what you just told us all?
Well,
We're-
I'm back on
I'm just,
finance and economics, but
well, there you go.
what these guys are gonna do.
We need more members.
You're talking to a banker or something.
Yeah.
I have no
Can we
idea.
vote on this?
I've been a banker.
good. Do you have a second? All right, yeah. Go ahead and roll call.
Brower,
Yes.
Miller excused, Zelinski,
Yes.
Worth, yes, Davis.
No.
Gotta get in.
Motion carries. All right. We have Brian McAllister here. He owns Off-Broad and he is interested in possibly buying Riches.
So we'd like to, okay, apply for the Class C liquor license from you guys. We'd be good community members. We've owned the Hawk Route for 27 years. We also own the Kingsley Inn in Kingston. We've owned that for a year and a half. And my youngest son would like to get into the restaurant business. So it's about a good size. And we think we'd be good stewards and good community members. And we'd like to be a part of what you have if you let us.
We need more restaurants. That'd be awesome.
Is it gonna be good beer?
Well, I don't know if you know about the restaurant industry, but things are kind of changing. The Supreme Court just changed the tip tax credit. So I'm one of 8 executive directors of the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. We represent, at this time, paid members, about 8,900 members throughout the state of Michigan. You know, the Grand Hotel, American, Old Mission, and tons of restaurant tours. And the Supreme Court just changed the tip tax credit, which doesn't mean anything to you, but it means right now I can pay servers $3.93 an hour, and for their tips, to make up their minimum wage. So for the Hofbrau, which is a huge place, but kind of a big place, our bartenders and servers, we log 50,000 hours a year. So for us, the minimum wage is going to be $3.50 an hour starting February 21st of 2025, which is, to me, $500,000. If we keep everything the way it is. We think Riches is kind of a unique spot where you wouldn't have to have servers, trying to be kind of a funky spot, and have kind of more like walk in, do your order, have 8 or 9 tables, and be a little more to go part up with you, your wine and liquor service.
Would we be giving this license to you or to your son?
Well, we're applying for it for both of us. I mean, if you, well, to me, it does. But, and my son, so.
Because I was wondering, do we put, whose name would it be under? I mean,
Well,
or does it matter?
it doesn't really matter, because what we'll do is we'll apply to the state, and the state really has to issue the license. We just need permission for you to actually give us permission, and then we'll apply for it, and they will.
And we have one available, right?
Is there a formal form to give you permission?
No, I don't think so. I think you guys just gotta give us permission, and we talk to the Liquor Control Commission and say, hey, we're applying for it, you're granted permission to have it from the township.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on our end of it, we would be, I don't know what ultimately we ended up doing with it, but we'd be good operators and good community members, and we'd do the best we could on that part of it. I don't see it being the Hofbrau. I mean, the Hofbrau is kind of its own thing, but I can see it just being a spot where people will stop by and have a brew and have some sandwiches and stuff like that.
And like you can pull some Bugs Bunny stuff where you walk through the door and it's this big. Being the Hofbrau is a little tough. But
Do we know what the lot size is on that? Is that 1 acre, 2 acre?
6.5.
6.5 acres.
Do you have to have a public meeting to approve that, because there's a church right next door? I'm not against it, but, I'm thinking of the church next door. There's nobody here from the church, so does that have to be in front?
I don't think there's any laws regarding a church.
No.
The crazy thing is, there is if you were to open a marijuana store, but I don't believe there is for serving alcohol or a store selling it.
There's on schools, you have to be far enough away, that kind of stuff, and
Churches?
plus the church has communion, so. I mean,
Yeah.
I said, I'm not opposed.
Are you gonna serve lunch there? Just curious.
We don't know what we're gonna do, actually. What we'd like to do is get operational. We would start from noon to 10 and see if lunch is viable. We did lunch at the Hofbrau for a long time, and we quit doing lunch because there's no industry, there's no traffic, there's really, There's not much business. Now, if you look at Okies up on 31, Bradley's, they have one business. You know, there's 17,000 cars that come up and down this road every day.
Yep.
And where we are at the Hawkville and J. Manning Parkway and 137, there's about 1,000 cars a day.
Yeah, so with 6.5 acres, you could have six extra. We could, for the future, we could.
I don't know if that's really.
Well, at least one pool table.
Yeah.
That'll be the whole place.
Well, we think if we could turn back to time, we would just keep the hot powder where it was.
Yeah, the old days.
Yeah.
That place is good. But labor's an issue. We can't get anybody. We haven't been since COVID, at least at the Hawkville, we haven't been fully staffed for 4 years. And they were, so I'm lucky to get paid off this.
Can I ask you a question, make an observation?
Sure.
Brian, you've applied for multiple licenses before. I've applied for up to 6 myself. All I ever had to do was bring a copy of the certified, the approved minutes in, showing that the board acted on it. Is that your experience?
Yep.
And what I would recommend is that your language says that you're supporting Brian McAllister and an entity to be named. Because he'll have to, would you disagree with that?
No, I do all right. I mean, we'll be an LLC or something like that as opposed to just would be us would be a corporation or something.
So I move that we approve a liquor license to Brian McAllister and an entity to be named.
I'll second that.
What level?
What level?
Should state what level, what class.
Let's see.
Class C.
Class C.
Where is this gonna be at?
At Rich's? Yeah. Alright,
Make the venue big enough so that we can host events.
Yep.
When are you gonna be open?
Well, I'll tell you, once you
Call
apply for the liquor license, which takes a little bit of time, there's a process. You go through, they go back into your history, 10 years.
That keeps going back to the wrong
All your
page.
family, all your kids, all your relatives, and these will be this process. So I would think we realistically be able to spring.
This page.
Okay.
Looking forward.
Before summer. Me too.
We're excited. And my son's excited. He's a foodie, so it's gonna be, we're gonna have some fun. And we're excited to be a part of the community. So we're excited to be able to get going. And we appreciate it. We'll be proud.
alright, go ahead and roll call, Rose.
Brower.
Yes.
Zelinski?
Yes.
Mary's excused, Miller's excused, Worth, yes. Davis?
Yes. Carries. Alright, campaign signs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait till the end
Oh.
there.
I don't mind waiting. It's worth the wait. Yeah, it's better.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Very exciting. I wanted to bring up campaign signs because I know from talking to the MTA that most townships have a policy that no campaign signs on township property. And actually, since bringing up the issue, wanted to bring up the issue in part because David Egler had a sign on the corner of Lake Ann and 31, which is township property. In the last couple of days, sign's blown away. He took it off. I don't know if either of you called him to say, it's on township property. But I wasn't aware, do we have a specific policy or?
It's like Benzie Bus put a sign up for the August election on our it wasn't on our property. It was the easement, which it's our property, but it's county easement, road commission. And we had complaints about that. And I called, Tammy called and said, we need to just take it down because it is on township property.
And I should have clarified from the beginning, I'm not talking about
Right.
during election period. There's the 100-foot rule is
Right.
From our entrance.
And it was well over 100 feet from our entrance. So I kind of questioned that, and that's why I made a call.
Mhm.
And, and that's that. And then, but I did do some other looking, not knowing exactly what it was you were wanting to, so, because I wanted to call the Bureau of Elections to get
And I know.
their total intake on it, and I don't think we have a policy, to be honest with you. It's just been carried on.
No, and I apologize for, both Dave and, Rose email, when I said, put campaign signs on, they emailed back, what do you want to talk about? I can't talk about it because it's a policy thing that needs to be talked about in public. So that's why I responded the way I did. If we don't have a policy, I would suggest that a simple policy that there's no campaign signs on inland township property.
Yeah, and it has to be, it's gonna be an ordinance, and that's something that I will make sure that is taken to, the planning commission to make sure it goes in the zoning ordinance, because we do have a sign policy, but it doesn't specifically address that type of sign. But it does say that a sign, these things do not require a sign permit, provided such signs comply with any applicable federal or state law. State law says on any state road, which 31 is, that a sign has to be 30 feet from the white line. So any sign, campaign sign, that is not 30 feet from that white line is illegal. But putting that 30 feet inside would make it probably close to the 100-foot mark and would still need to be removed from our property.
Well,
And
Right.
I
We
agree.
have more property than just right here.
Yes, well, somebody did put them on the cemeteries. I'm like, why would you do that?
going for the dead vote.
Yeah.
People won't say what party that is.
You have to have permission from that landowner plus the.
To adjacent property
the
owners.
Landowner before and after.
I've also been in touch with the department analysts from the Board of Elections Disclosure and Compliance Department. And on private property, there are only two people that can place and remove a sign: the candidate with the permission of the property owner and the property owner. Since we are the property owners, we can adopt a policy, and an ordinance certainly is much better, but we can adopt a policy that says no campaign signs.
Right.
And I, as the property owner, I would, and if somebody puts one out, we're not going to grab it
Right.
and, smash it to pieces. We'll call them and say, come pick up your sign at the
Right.
the office. But I also, in checking into that, interestingly, again, there are traffic regulations. You can't block vision, and
Right.
can't be an obstruction. But let me find my notes here. You can actually put campaign signs on state and DNR land, and you don't have to ask the state or DNR permission,
Right.
as long as it doesn't block anyone's view. So, but I would suggest we adopt a policy until we have an ordinance in place that.
Yeah, and I'll bring that up at the planning commission, make sure they do that when because they're talking ordinances, changing the ordinances right now.
Right.
And what I found for theirs, and county, because they don't have a planning commission, they don't have any ordinances on it.
Yep.
And I couldn't find road commissions, but I do know road commission has removed signs before and kept them at their office, because they're gonna mow them down. And
I talked to both the county and the road commission. The road commission will remove signs in order to do common maintenance.
right,
They are required to keep them for 7 days. So if something goes missing, and you think it was the road commission, talk to the road commission,
Yeah.
they'll tell you straight up. And the county has no rules in place as far as
Right.
signs at all, so.
All right. So I'll make a motion that
take your
we
tape measure.
make it a township policy that campaign signs are not to be placed on township property.
I'll second. After we vote, I do have one more comment that I think is kind of interesting.
You're gonna say it now. Well, if you say it now before the vote. Hearing discussion.
That doesn't have to do with this
Oh.
affair.
Doesn't have to. do with the
Oh,
vote.
okay, I thought it was, okay, sorry.
Okay, all right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I've had, my other last comment, I've had two interesting discussions with two completely separate people that apparently last year during the election cycle, there was some vandalism of signs. Trail cams have been, I don't know if they are in place, certainly talked about being in place, but tell your friends that are running around with baseball bats or whatever, that be careful because you could be on a trail cam. I just thought I'd share that since it was shared with me.
Well, with that said.
All right. And we'll reopen public comment at 8:36.
My comments is 19481 Highway. And a couple of weeks ago, smoke was blowing from one of these places that was here at our house. And I called 911, 12:30 this morning. And they come out, the fire department come out, put fire out and stuff. But why should I have to put up with all that smoke? And that's what I'm going with.
Was that the
It's
people
the
across,
second time in probably a year I have to do it.
Is that from Marshall?
Blowing inside my house.
Marshall? From these guys here?
One of these places over here, there, or in town, I don't know.
Oh.
Well, that was just a couple of weeks ago. So, I
it,
don't see why I have to shut my window for food.
I'll look into it. I don't.
All I know is I called fire department at 12:30 in the morning.
I know there was some talk, wasn't there, a while back about they were willing to not burn on certain windy days or blowing certain ways?
On extremely windy days.
But he also talked about, because there were complaints, he came into a meeting and he talked about, you know, if we would work with him, he'd work with us and not burn his burn piles on certain days where it was blowing towards homes.
But if it was him or if it might have been
No, it was him.
homeowner.
It was the Ron, or
Because
Captain Parcel.
the old board a while ago tried to put in a no burning.
Exactly, when that was going on.
And it didn't go through. And I think some of it was because of what the limitations were.
Yes.
Or how it was written.
Right.
It got voted down. Because it said that he couldn't bring any material brought from an outside source. Well, that's where he gets all of his material. Now, we cannot do anything about if he's burning in his outdoor boiler.
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, sometimes that goes, I don't know when all he does it, because I know he does it during the summer too, because he's got to heat some things. That smoke coming from there, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's him burning. They went over there and it was smoldering from the ground because it burned for a couple of days. He dug a hole, he put it all in it and then put it back over. So smoke was coming up from underneath there. It was the smoldering. We can't put that out. We can just soak it with tons of water, but it doesn't usually put it out. It sits there, it still smolders. And usually us doing that causes more smoke.
Right.
They did drop some water on some areas, but not all of it. But what they told me was when they got over there, there wasn't any smoke. There wasn't that much smoke at the time, which was like half an hour because it took a bunch of people to get up. It took a little while for them to come.
Yeah.
So we called.
It's about 1:30 and fire up on that.
Yeah. So they did go over, they dumped a little bit of water on it, but a lot of it was already buried because he had buried it that night before he left, and it was some smoke coming up through.
It's still from my house.
Yes.
I think
That's
they
where
would be,
there
council
needs to be a
would do something about that board.
I don't know that there's anything we can do, right, except make it more.
All right.
So,
look into it. You got something?
Yeah, just regarding the event committee, I heard that Krista Phillips was never approved.
Oh,
So I'm asking the board to please approve Krista Phillips so she can be covered under our insurance.
I make a motion that we approve Krista Phillips to the event committee. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I forgot about that. I was gonna bring that up earlier, but I forgot. Okay. Any other public comment? All right, close public comment at 8:41. Entertain a motion to adjourn. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting closed.
Thank you guys for attending.